The Knicks are down to their final chance to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals after a 116-103 loss to the Pacers in Game 6 on Friday night in Naptown. Joining me to break down Game 6 and preview Game 7 is the Dean of Knicks Film School, my guy, Jonathan Macri. Joins us now. J-Mac, I got to ask you how you doing. I know you didn't want a Game 7, but we have one. How you doing, my friend?
If I'm being honest, I always had a sense that things were heading in this direction in this series. I mean, I think I originally picked the Knicks in 6, but once OG Anunoby went down in Game 2, and it became clear that that was going to be a longer term absence, and plus just the way the series opened with all 3 straight close games, and then obviously how the Pacers responded at home in Game 4, it's one of those series that feels like it is the right thing for it to go 7, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, stressful Sunday it will be for the Knicks fan with Game 7. And J-Mac, in Game 6, the Knicks, they were right in the mix early on. They had the lead after one quarter. They were back and forth with the Pacers for most of the second quarter, and then it all came apart. What were the key factors that led to the Knicks' demise in Game 6?
Yeah, 2 things. One, rebounds. This team, in the regular season, was the best rebounding team in the league throughout. Even after this game, they're still the best rebounding team in the postseason. But there was a significant gap, especially on the offensive boards between them and everybody else in the league during the playoffs. And they just got outworked on the boards. The rebounding deficit between Indiana and New York was 12. That is New York's biggest deficit of the postseason. So I thought that was huge. It gave the Pacers a lot of second chance opportunities. And obviously the Knicks didn't get many second chance opportunities. So that's number one. And the other thing, I just thought as the game went on, you said the first quarter was good. I would say from kind of the middle of the second quarter, and it just got progressively worse. Their rotations, their closeouts, their just overall defensive execution was not there. I like some people will look at a final score like that or look at how the game kind of got out of hand and say, well, the effort wasn't there. I don't think it was an effort issue. I just think, the Knicks, when they're at their best, and you saw it in Game 5, they are closing out on a dime. Every rotation, they're defending on a string, and they did not do that nearly to the degree they need to against a team like Indiana.
Yeah, they definitely did not do that in Game 6. And the Knicks, another note from this game is they now deal with another injury, this time to arguably the heart and soul of their team. That is Josh Hart. He exited the game with an abdominal injury. How significant is this injury in your eyes to the Knicks' chances in Game 7? And who do you see stepping up in Josh Hart's absence if he can't go?
I mean, it's massive. I would say other than Jalen Brunson and maybe Isaiah Hartenstein, given the Mitchell Robinson injury, I would say Josh Hart is probably their third most indispensable player. And I know that may seem kind of funky to say, given that fans look at a guy like, well, he can't shoot, and Pascal Siakam has been kind of having his lunch occasionally on defense. You said it. He's the heart and soul of the team, but also, and I've said this before, that implies that it's all just kind of toughness and grit and extra energy. Josh Hart fills up so many boxes in terms of skills that you need on the court. He's a phenomenal rebounder. He's a great passer for a wing. He gets out in transition on the break. He gets his hands in a lot of passing lanes, gets a lot of loose balls. He does, and if you need a bucket, he can give you a bucket, and he's right there for second in the team lead or second on the team in scoring throughout the postseason. I mean, if he can't go, I don't even want to say those words out loud, but it looks like it's a possibility. I got to say Alec Burks is probably the most likely candidate, because for as much as Precious Achiuwa gives you nice size, he could help you out on the boards, defensively. He's a plus, given the Pacers starting alignment at least. I think they're going to need some shooting. I think they're going to need some playmaking. And I think the only guy that's left is Alec Burks.
Alec Burks. Didn't think we'd be saying that at the start of the series, but we are now, and he has played well in the series, so that's no shade to Alec Burks. But we'll see what happens. We'll have our eyes very closely watching the news around Josh Hart, his availability for Game 7. So, J-Mac, before the start of the playoffs, you and I spoke about the Knicks going for the 2 seed on the final day of the season. Well, going for it ensured that they would have Game 7 on their home court, which they will have on Sunday. And it's been quite some time since there's been a basketball Game 7 at the world's most famous arena. So how much of an advantage do you think playing at Madison Square Garden will be for the Knicks in this Game 7?
Massive. Cannot be overstated how big an advantage it is so the Knicks have played 12 playoff games so far, 6 at home and 6 on the road. In the 6 home playoff games, they are outscoring teams by almost 8 points per 100 possessions, 122.2 offensive rating, 114.5 defensive rating. Those numbers are phenomenal. On the road, they are getting outscored by nearly 10 points per 100 possessions. And I understand a lot of those numbers, those bad numbers, come from the last 2 games in Indiana, but still the offense hasn't been nearly as good, under 114 per 100, and then they're giving up almost or a little over 123. And the biggest thing, and not to go repeat myself, but rebounding wise, they're grabbing 56.1% of all misses when they're at home. That number dips to 48.9% when they're on the road. The offensive rebounding numbers, the defensive rebounding numbers, it's like night and day. And then I'll throw one more at you. They're shooting a lot better at home. They're shooting 54% effective field goal percentage in Madison Square Garden, just over 50 away from home. It is night and day. And when you look at how they lost Game 6, and if you want to go back to Game 4, where that little bit of extra effort, a little bit of extra energy wasn't there, they seem to find those deep reserves when they are in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, it seems to find it, and they've been really good in terms of their offensive performance at the world's most famous arena. We'll see if they can bring that on Sunday in Game 7. Now, you know this, J-Mac, Game 7s are often about handling pressure, mental toughness. So which Knicks players do you think are best equipped to handle this high-pressure situation?
I'm gonna cheat here because so if we were dealing with a normal team, right, with a normal, 8-man rotation, you could easily probably pick a few players like, well, maybe this guy won't fully have it or he won't come up big. The Knicks are down to so few guys that I don't know if there's anyone that is going to step foot on the court that I am worried about in this specific context, about not having the, what it takes to come up big in a Game 7. And you go man by man, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, obviously Josh Hart if he plays. Those 3 guys have been, they've been through the playoffs. They've all won a national championship. So I don't worry about them. Isaiah Hartenstein, given what his role is, and given it's really just about can you find that little extra something, I'm not worried about Hartenstein. And then Alec Burks and Deuce McBride are the 2 guys who were, you would have said, all right, well, maybe I don't have as much confidence in them. Deuce McBride was the one guy who showed up for them in Game 6. He came out on fire the first quarter. He really gave them the lead early in that game. And then, Burks, and this is, again, it's going to sound funny talking about a guy who was so bad for the last couple months of the regular season. He is a guy that I don't think the setting, the scene, I don't think that matters to him. He's not above having a bad game. Obviously, he didn't have a great game yesterday, but I don't think Game 7 is going to face him. I think he's going to be there. He's going to be ready to play. So on the bright side, I think everybody who does step foot on the court, I think they'll be ready to go.
I like that. I like that confidence. You're not worried about anybody in terms of the pressure. That's good. So it brings me to the final question here, J-Mac. I know Game 7 can be stressful for the fans, but what are the keys to the Knicks getting a win in Game 7 on Sunday and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals to play the Celtics, which the Knicks fans want to see? What needs to happen in order for them to advance?
I'm not going to repeat everything I said before. All of those things, rebounding, making sure you're on your P's and Q's with defensive rotations, those are obvious. You need to do those things in a Game 7, especially if you're going to be shorthanded. I think 2 things on opposite ends of the spectrum. Number 1, can you find a way to turn the Pacers over a little bit more? They turned the ball over, or they turned the Pacers over a bunch in Game 5, led to a lot of easy buckets, and also it's preventing them from getting into their half-court offense, which is devastating. And so that's number 1. And then number 2, and it's unfair to put this on this guy because he's given you everything and then some this season. I think Jalen Brunson needs to come through with a performance for the ages. And especially if it looks like Josh Hart, if he plays, is not going to be what we have become accustomed to. that to me says Jalen Brunson needs to be not just the best player on the floor, but like one of those games where you watch him and you say, well, is this guy the best scorer in the league? And again, that's not fair. That's not fair to put on anyone. That's not fair to put on, you know, a guy who wins an MVP. But I truly believe, I think they're going to need one of those sorts of performances from Brunson to come out on top. And you know what? I think they're going to get it.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think we can see one of those legendary performances. And the reason I believe that is because we've seen it a few times right now in the playoffs. So why not another one? Real quick, J-Mac, what's your prediction? I know you're going to be stressed out tomorrow. What's your prediction here? Are you saying Knicks in 7? You got to say Knicks in 7, I think. Or you think they're not going to do this? What is it going to be?
No, the Hart injury worries me because, again, it's not just that you're counting on, you know, whether it's Alec Burks or Precious Achiuwa to come in and play big minutes. Mm-hmm. You essentially are down to 6 players that you trust, and it's really tough to win a game with 6 players. Not saying it can't be done, but it's hard. So that makes me a little bit worried. But because it's in MSG, because they have Jalen Brunson, because of the thing that I said before about I trust all of these guys, somehow, some way, I think it'll be a tight game in the fourth quarter. I think they're going to come out with a win.
All right, there you go, Knicks fans. He got it from J-Mac. He said it with his chest. He thinks the Knicks are going to prevail on Sunday in Game 7. We will see a lot to look forward to and a lot to watch in terms of Josh Hart's injury. We'll see how it all goes down. That is Jonathan Macri, the Dean of Knicks Film School. J-Mac, I'm wishing you a stress-free Sunday, although I'm sure that will not happen, but we'll see how it all plays out. Yeah, I will be talking to you before the game and after the game. Thank you, my man. Appreciate you.
Be well, Dex.
Thanks.